legislature, Speaker Therese Terlaje. Again, thank you for joining us, Madam Speaker.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you
good-
for that interview that you did with Mr. Chima. Yeah, really appreciate those details.
Yeah, you really had to kind of look at the JIC report. I was just curious, wondering where are these numbers coming from?
Yeah.
And then I just kind of looked at the military, did a comparison, and then I think I messaged Chris. I was like, man, this looks kind of weird. This doesn't seem right. And he's like, oh, just go ahead and just talk about it. I was like, but I'm not even sure I'm doing this right. And then when I went further back, I was like, oh, man, these numbers are right.
Thank you, Sabrina. That was good work. And the questions were excellent. I was not aware that the vaccination rate of the military personnel was so low.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it stateside, I mean, that's the big problem they're having is that's why they're calling it a pandemic of the unvaccinated, because not only are they very far behind our vaccination rate here locally, but then you have that whole element of the anti-vax faction, right?
Yes.
Which I'm guessing
And it
probably
is very concerning. It is very concerning with school about to open. Yeah, we cannot afford this right now. So I hope that they will take the meeting very seriously and that the lieutenant governor and governor will do what they can to get their military partners to also take this very seriously.
All right. Well, here we are again, the elephant in the room. Go ahead, Bree.
Any word on the art plan?
The art plan, no. I did request, was not given a copy of any plan. The only thing I had asked also if they had submitted anything to the U.S. Treasury, such as questions or, regarding the guidelines. And the response I got was that they joined in a joint with other governors request to U.S. Treasury and so their questions were pretty much those that you've seen answered. So the U.S. Treasury has been since giving out kind of additional information, and so pretty much general information. Nothing specific regarding the hospital, use of it for the hospital, use of it for the ARP or anything like that.
Yeah.
Wait, so as acting lieutenant governor, you requested the ARP plan or the investment plan or whatever kind of plan, and they told you no?
Yes, and I requested it before also, and they told me it was exempt from FOIA, probably as the same as they've told you, due to deliberative. So I asked again while I'm acting lieutenant governor because I should be part of that deliberative process. But no, I didn't. I received one. That was the response they gave me, was the questions they had sent to as together with other governors, just the questions that the Association of Governors had sent to the U.S. Treasury.
I did.
But we have now also been very busy here at the legislature. We've been in session, this week, and we are trying to clear some of these bills while we are waiting for the budget bill. That's the big one that we, need to address. We got to get that done by the end of August. So we're hoping that that will be released soon, so we can review it and be prepared to deliberate. It's going to be very difficult, I think, because we only are looking at half of the picture for Guam, right? We're looking at what our revenues can bring in is about $700 million maybe, and then we've got a $600 million ARP spending plan, and we're being asked to look the other way when it comes to agencies such as public health and not fund things such as senior citizens and foster children's services and trust that the ARP funds will take care of that. Well, I'm hoping that we can get further clarification, because I don't think that's, I'm not comfortable doing a budget like that. I'm not going to say, we as legislature here, we set our priorities and then we exclude people from those priorities. I mean, and the agency has not said that it can take care of these people with their current budget request. They've just saying we're not going to ask for what we really need. That's been very clear. And unfortunately, that's clear with a lot of the agencies they're not asking for what they need. They're making that clear. That's clear. And yet, I don't know, it feels very wrong to me that we're going to not fund the needs of the agencies, or at least the priorities as we see them. So I'm hoping when the governor returns that she can, brief us on her trip and give us the details at that time. I think, I think that would be the right time, right before we start our budget, to hear the details of this ARP plan. And even if it's verbal, even if it's, flexible and it's going to change later, to hear it from her directly would make it very much more concrete for us to rely on during the budget process. And we want to make sure, we can't necessarily do some of these programs that the ARP money allows us to do. We can't just do those as a legislature, because then we would be completely shortchanging other critical services, right? Like, we can't hand out RISE money payments from the general fund right now, while we have special funds tracking so far below. We've got 24 million in gross receipts tracking below, and so it's a delicate balance, and I just want us all to work together to give the people what they really deserve, and these agencies up to full speed, so we can get their missions done. If I can go on, in one particular, I'm hoping. We had hoped, as part of the ARP suggestions we made, to put money towards the Chamorro Land Trust for infrastructure. And we just heard Congress is moving on this infrastructure bill. So I'm very hopeful that we will have money for infrastructure. We will finally be able to put water and sewer into some, these tracts of land where not just Chamorro Land Trust lands, but other businesses could open up in those areas and fix the roads and the flooding. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. We have, again, you've heard me say this so many times, but a very unique opportunity here. And I am hoping the legislature is going to help to make sure that we don't squander it, and that we really put it to where our priorities are. We passed a bill, we put a bill on third reading recently. That was Bill 36. That was for the telecommunications cables. I don't know if you've been following this. I know you've been following the Chamorro Land Trust things. So this bill would, it's a bill introduced by Joseph Augustine. It was referred to my committee. We had a hearing, and ultimately we had to do a lot of work, because this bill started off several years ago. The GTA had approached the Chamorro Land Trust and asked to lease submerged lands for $18,000 a year. While PICA was there, she was negotiating with them and pretty much got it up to about $50,000 a year for 2 leases. But I don't know if you remember this. I think it was on her last day or right around there, where they determined, according to their legal counsel, they could not proceed. This exceeded the term that they were, or their authorization under law, and they needed legislative approval. So, or to do it a different way. And so then these bills were introduced by Senator San Augustine without an amount as to what the leases would be for. And Chamorro Land Trust had come in and said, we're asking for a minimum of $50,000 now, because that's our need. There was no appraisal or any way for them to determine what the value was. So they were just asking based on their needs, and they said a minimum of $50,000. But I really had to do a lot of work and look around. I wanted Guam to be treated, as the rest of the world is treated, right? I didn't want Guam to be that place where, these companies could come in and for minimal, especially when the Chamorro Land Trust is in such great need. So as you know, we've got some cables coming in around the island. Some of them are not income producing for the government of Guam at all. Some of them, PD, we've got 2. One of them, the income is $5,000 a year. That was the more recent lease. We have another one for $5,000 a year in PD also. That's the Tata. And so those are 2. We have some that are going to be expiring. And so I wanted to make sure that we could come up with some arrangement for this Alupang lease that would, set a precedent and hopefully guide the Chamorro Land Trust in their future renewals or new leases of submerged lands. And so that's what we did. And we came up with what we found to be more globally accepted rate of $100,000 per cable. And in Lupang, they're looking to bring in 6 cables. So this money is going to go towards the Chamorro Land Trust Survey and Survey and Infrastructure Fund. I don't know if you remember, this is the fund that got raided before several times, actually. Over, I think once for, was it 500,000 and then for 300, 700, I don't know. The amounts were big. They had been saving them up so that they could get in there and do the infrastructure. And then the funds were raided and Chamorro Land Trust back to square one, unable to divide these parcels, unable to make them smaller with sewer so that we can give out more. So anyways, that's what, that was the work that my committee did, trying to get these leases to be more fair. So I'm confident we passed this to the 3rd reading yesterday, that we have done this and that this will hopefully to set precedent for the rest of the leases going forward. And now we just got to keep close, close tracking of the Chamorro Land Trust and their ability to use this money and to use the ARP funds, if they are given some by the governor, to get these tracts, surveyed, divided, and distributed as supposed to be years ago.
Speaker, I don't know if you were tracking that the governor had met with, it was like a high up Navy guy, about the new hospital. Did you see that? And did that kind of make you wonder a little bit about where the money for the new hospital will come from? Or do you think she was just checking on if it was something that was, we're able to use the ARP from? Go ahead.
I think she's been open about that she's going to look at every funding source that she can for the new hospital. And my understanding is it might be a mix of funding sources. We can only fund part of that with even the 300,000 or 300 million that she wants to set aside from ARP. That's less than half of what is needed. If they take the EITC, all of the EITC reimbursement, that's also a small portion, maybe half of what is needed. And so they were supposed to be looking for every type of funding source on this trip. And I'm hoping that they are successful. Yeah, I don't think, even the congressman has offered that the Army Corps is going to help in the design. So I think we're supposed to be meeting with this Army Corps representative, maybe the 12th, in the middle of August. And so I think everyone, Gita, the governor, congressmen, all of us have to look at every funding source. This is a huge project, especially the way they've put them together as one big project. We could finish public health tomorrow, with the funds that we have right now, and just be done with that. But they're trying to combine these projects. So yeah, we needed a lot more information, and yeah.
Did you get
perhaps I don't know if you remember, sorry, just one more thing. When they did the EIS on the buildup, one of the biggest concerns was the hospital, that it would exceed our hospital capacity, our medical capacity, and our public safety capacity. Those were some of the biggest things that were found in the EIS for the buildup. So I think it's only right that they help to contribute to, if we need to expand our hospital. Sorry, Sabrina.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on and see whether or not you got to meet with the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Gilday, when he was here last week.
No, I actually read about it in the media, and that's unfortunate. I would have very much liked to have met with him, and I think it would have been appropriate that not just as the acting lieutenant governor, but as the speaker, that I also had that opportunity. I'm going to send a letter to the Admiral maybe today and ask that if there are other opportunities like that we not be overlooked. I thought it's pretty normal that they always include the legislature, so I'm going to double check. But that was not that did not happen this time.
Well, even as acting lieutenant governor, that's kind of
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little bit of a snub there.
We're all kind of waiting to see whether or not Bill 75 and Bill, I think it's 164, the RISE bills are going to be added to session agenda. What are you hearing?
Well, I think I'm seeing at least one of them start to be routed. So they're being routed. They're not yet out of committee. They're routed for votes. And yeah, I had hoped that we could deal with those early on and be done with them, right? It's very confusing when we hear revenue and tax being interviewed and kind of sounding again like we're going back to all these other requirements.
Yeah.
So yeah, at least on our part, this is in the governor's hands, really. An all rights program is in her hands. It's created by executive order, and it's really up to her and the Department of Revenue and Taxation to set the rules on those. Unfortunately, when they cite the rules that were created for another program, we're going to go in and hopefully wipe those rules so that that's not their excuse. And that's pretty much all we're doing, is removing it as an excuse, because it's been within their power all this time to implement their program.
It's the most bizarre dance. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. And I know that you've been reporting on the use of ARP funds. I saw a letter that President Biden had written to the Congress and to the states, kind of pushing them to use their funds, particularly the rent eviction money, right? For landlords and tenants. And yeah, I think those funds are for a purpose and for those in need, and we just have to keep that in mind and push as hard as we can to get the money to those in need. All of it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how long are you going to be acting lieutenant governor? And have you been able to do any acting lieutenant governor type stuff?
Well,
no.
Well, they've been sending me additional information that I guess normally gets copied to the lieutenant governor. And I'm, of course, made myself available for any other work that is needed. But otherwise, my hands are completely full here with what we're trying to do here in the legislature. We're trying to move a bunch of bills, as I said, get ready for this budget. And I think I'm doing a lot of work in prep for the budget, just because there are so many unknowns, and our tracking is so, we're going to be asked again to trust that, this tracking when our businesses just look, they just look the same as they did some of these businesses a year ago, right? They're not completely open, especially restaurants. I mean, so many of them, they're just so many businesses, all of 2 months still closed. So I am trying to look for the most reliable information possible. I'm trying to do a very thorough review of what other states are doing, and I've seen some other states do some unique things. Some of the states are taking it within, like their legislatures are taking it within their authority to dictate use of some of the ARP funds. I think you guys have been tracking that as well. And so in any event, the most efficient way to do it is to work together, to have it open in front of the people what our priorities are going to be, and that's a plan, right? And if it has to be changed later on, then I think everybody will understand that. But we should have a plan, especially while we are trying to allocate the resources that we have remaining in the general fund and in the special funds. These special funds are not tracking well at all, and so I don't think they're expected to track well next year either. So it's still concerning, very concerning. I'm concerned that, while we're opening schools, every service is going to be having a high demand, right? And we need these agencies up to speed, for sure. We don't want any more delays. We don't want long lines. We don't want impediments to getting things done. I'm glad, by the way, for the coverage that you've been doing on the Marble Cave. I think that's it really exposes the vulnerabilities of our system, right? So we give approvals in advance. We put all kinds of conditions sometimes. I've seen this, we just went through this recently with the Guam Land Use Commission. Remember, we had oversight hearings, and because we were concerned that they are able to say, we're going to approve your project, these are the conditions, but I had found no one who was responsible for enforcing those conditions. And so we find years later that the condition that, you're going to put in additional parking, or you're going to prevent flooding, you're going to do ponding bays, all of those, there was no enforcer. And so we had at the time put in a bill to ensure that the Department of Land Management was going to track the conditions, and that they would be the one to have to remind Public Works they're not, is this condition being met, regularly, kind of to monitor the conditions. But of course, we've got regulatory agencies, that's their job. So, and we've known this, and we've seen this, it also extends to things like historic preservation, right? Where they give permits in advance, clearing and grading permits, they sign off on those. But if they don't have enough people to go out there and actually look at what these people are doing, we're very much, it's a trusting system. It's an honor system. And I've been on the historic preservation's case for quite a while, saying, why don't you have people out there roaming around? Why is it the public that has to call me and say, are you aware of this clearing? And they're normally not aware. So unless it's a permit that has run through their office, they are not aware. They don't have anybody out there in the field necessarily checking those things out until there's a complaint. And that sounds, from your stories, very similar to Guam EPA, right?
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. I don't think we can afford that on these places, especially those over our aquifer.
Yeah.
I think we have to have all eyes and all hands on deck when it comes to our aquifer. That clearing and grading that happened at Marbo, that's a big concern for me, because they wanted to put solar panels, but they did a lot more. I mean, they really graded that area down. If you've seen it, I remember driving there before the panels were put on, and just the clearing and grading is really massive and very alarming for me. Those are the proposals that some of them have been made for the Chamorro Land Trust for use of their lands. They want to use these properties for clearing and grading, for gravel, to mineral extraction. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to caution the Chamorro Land Trust from entering into those leases, because I don't think that the Chamorro Land Trust has done a full assessment of what the impacts of that are. And I think we as a government have to come up with a uniform policy as to how much grading of limestone, are we going to allow. It's a super valuable commodity right now, super valuable. So the pressure is really, really heavy on the Chamorro Land Trust to allow this type of grading, to lease a property for commercial use and allow them to grade it down and sell the limestone, right? So these are some of the pressures. So they're under huge pressures, and they're underfunded right now in operations. And so they look at it as an opportunity to fund their operations. And I'm trying to hold them off from that, because I think these are the risks. These are the concerns that if we can't adequately monitor this type of grading, then, we are looking at huge damage and irreparable damage to our waterlands and our resources.
It's interesting that what you're saying versus what we've heard the permitting czar talk about, former Governor Carl Gutierrez, and he says that there's just too many impediments and we need to grease the wheels and issue, which is, I mean, maybe there'll be a dialing back of that approach with all this Marble Cave stuff, but it's interesting, the dichotomy.
Well, I know his concern was the cost, right? And so that is actually a valid concern. Yeah, okay. So we can't build a house in certain areas of Guam if the State Historic Preservation Office thinks that you need to do an archaeological assessment.
Correct. Yeah.
And so when they come up with that finding, it's a huge cost, these archaeological assessments for regular people, and it adds on to. It makes your house not affordable anymore, right? So we're seeing this, and so the costs, I agree with him, are a concern, and we need to address those costs. It's like when you highlighted the need for social workers, we have a need for people in the Historic Preservation Office with those types of skills, archaeology. If we could pay them through the government, they wouldn't have to be contracted out by these private individuals, at least to do preliminary, analysis. But these are huge. We know on Guam, I always joke with them. I say, how do you come up with these areas when we learn from our history that the entire coastal area, almost all of it, was inhabited, and that if they were inhabited, then there were also burials, right? And so we know this is prevalent, and we would like to keep those in place as much as possible. But it is costly to determine those areas and work around them.
I mean, there was that part of it, Madam Speaker, where the former governor was talking about the cost of potential homeowners. But then he also was talking about, big business coming and setting up shop here and trying to, make it easier for them to do that.
Of course. We want our permitting process to be efficient. That was another oversight we had with this Guam Land Use Commission, and whenever Public Works comes in here, land management, we ask them again about this permitting process. So we found that there is a program that they are all supposed to be, I think it was it Daphne? Daphne reported on the RFP status at the last hearing we had, and so that RFP is supposed to be out there now. So they should be able to procure a system, technology that will make it more efficient, that will put everything online. All the agencies can review at one time, right? Save some time. But nowhere in this process should there be less review or less stringent review or, less enforcement of the conditions that they agree to when they allow these projects. And I'm telling you, there's a huge, tremendous pressure on these agencies to approve things that, just because of what you've described. It's like because of, businesses and the entire community is clamoring for more. And so there's a huge pressure on these agencies, and I recognize that. And I'm trying to, here with you today and in every opportunity I get to back them up and say, no, we want you to do your enforcement. You are the only ones, I tell them, that the people of Guam can rely on to do that particular job. And that we are relying on you, and so please, you can't turn the other way when...
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
/ Acting Lieutenant Governor.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks again for all the good information that you've been putting out this morning and every day. Suzu's Masi.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Right on.
Good luck.
It's 8:29. We're going to take a quick break.